Hey, Rod.
Sorry, it wouldn't let me turn off my mute until I accepted the fact that you're recording this.
Oh yeah, that it does that. It's CYA,
Yeah.
CYA. Oh my God. So my refrigerator died last week. So of course that was a big hassle, right?
What did?
My refrigerator. So
Oh no.
right? So that's a hassle. Like
Could
anyway,
could you get a
lucky.
new one? Because sometimes they're like supply is like low.
Yeah. So I was lucky enough that the one one I wanted, I'm not going for bells and whistles, right? Um,
Right.
Frankly, because more bells means more things to break. You know,
Right.
the way things are made these days is like, anyway, so the one I wanted, I was able to get within 2 weeks, and actually, it is actually coming to tomorrow. And I'm reading the email confirmation, and they've got the wrong address.
Oh
It's going,
no.
it's going to a house I flipped last year. So I'm like, oh, mother, help me.
Oh no. Like, is it already on its way? So you have to go intercept it or
No. It's coming tomorrow, so it's gonna be loaded. But the manifest has to be changed now, and they use a third party. And I get on the phone with Lowe's. The girl can't understand a word I'm saying. The connection
of
is
course.
really bad, and I had to start on this call because I'm hosting. So as soon as James gets on, I'll make him co-host and get off so
Well,
I can deal with that. I'm just like, it just occurred that I found this out, so I'm a little,
yeah,
flustered.
little bit of stress. Well, it looks like I'm able to share my screen.
Oh, you
You've
are?
already,
Okay.
it looks like you've already enabled that, that's the only thing that I was like going to worry about before you got off is make
Yeah.
sure that
Oh,
you
no.
enabled.
And actually, I was gonna make James a co-host. That's who's hosting this. It's my Google, I mean, it's my Zoom account. He doesn't
Cool.
have one anymore. It's like those little things. Just still trying to figure stuff out.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I, I've got a Zoom account too, because I use this all the time now. Like,
Oh, you're an expert then.
well, I've been doing virtual meetings for about 4 years, and
Right,
so I think I had it kind of covered before COVID hit. But like, I've got a client up in Idaho right now that I'm working with, and
right.
there's no way in hell I'm going to Idaho. like, like it's off the hook right now with COVID. I'm like, nope, let's just
That's
do
true.
Zoom.
That is true. Hi, Bill.
Hey, Bill,
Hello, everybody. How are you doing?
we're hanging in there,
I could be
getting
better.
ready for the cold weather. Got the backflow preventer drained on my sprinkler system tonight.
Oh, that's my husband's next task. He's about to go outside right now, finish work. He's gonna go do that. I
I
called
didn't blow
about
out the
30.
whole system. I just drained the
Well,
backflow
that's what we're
preventer.
doing too, because we can't, of course, last minute schedule
Yeah.
somebody at this time of year, right before a freeze.
I don't think it's going to get that cold tonight. So it's probably not that big of a deal because they said 33.
You
But
know, my luck, honestly, I'm
yeah,
just going to go do the right thing. So I think this month I've replaced the hot water heater. My dishwasher broke during COVID and I didn't even care. That's how, and now I got all three things getting all done, in this month. So it's like, it's been a month. It's been a,
yeah,
all
yeah.
right,
Tell me
where's
about it.
James? Because I need to make him a co-host and go deal with issues.
Yeah, it's been a year. What do you mean month? It's
Oh,
been like 18 months.
yeah. Oh, it has. You're right on that one. Gosh, but you know what? With COVID and a lot of it, life just became a little simpler in some ways, There's no going out. There were no decisions to be made about,
Well, it
what are you
did.
having for dinner tonight? It's like, whatever we're cooking.
Well, there was an article in the, I think it was the Washington Post or maybe it was the New York Times this morning about the millions of people that in the last quarter have just quit their jobs
I've heard that.
because they just don't want to go back to the way it was because they kind of got used to this simpler lifestyle and they don't want to go back to like the 80-hour work week and
I heard this.
working for the man, like all this kind of stuff. And like I think there's a big thing. I read this book called Civilized to Death.
Huh.
And the guy makes some pretty valid points that like in no time during human history did humans ever have to work so many hours a day or a week to provide for their basic survive needs of food and shelter and clothing.
Yep.
And we've kind of bought into this whole, the idea that we have to keep growing the GDP and we have to keep doing all this stuff. And people
Yep.
are checking out. People are like, no, I don't really have to do that.
Yep. Hey, James, I see you've joined. I assume you're going to be on video as well. I just made you the co-host. There you are.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, and I think
Troopy's
that's
got
all
to
you
chase
need.
down a refrigerator that's going to a.
Yeah, my refrigerator is getting delivered to the wrong address tomorrow. And I just realized, so I'm getting off of here or putting myself on mute so I can deal with that. Have fun, guys. I'll be back.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Okay, yep.
Somebody's going to get a free refrigerator. That'd be like sweet showing up on your door.
No, and it's the house that I flipped. I just bought new appliances for that one.
Hey, everybody.
Naomi, hello.
Long time no
Naomi.
see. I have a bit of a headache tonight, so I'm going to stay off camera and listen, so I'm not staring at the screen, because sometimes it gives me migraines.
Reasonable. I hope it feels better.
Thank you. Yeah,
you need one of those blue, what is it? Blue screen protectors or something like that.
blue light blockers. Yeah, I do. Well, actually, not these glasses I'm wearing, but I have a lot of blue light blocking glasses, and my prescription glasses are blue light blocking. But a lot of it, I get weird like sinus stuff in the winter. And so a lot of that like contributes to like weird sinus headaches. I've taken like 2 COVID tests in the past couple of days because I was freaking out, but it's just my normal weird winter.
Well, there's a lot of other crazy crap going around right now too. It doesn't have to be COVID.
That's very
like-
true.
Like,
Yeah.
so like all of the North High kids that went to prom, like or the homecoming dance or whatever that was they just had, like a bunch of them have come down. It's not COVID because a bunch of the kids went and got tested and they were all negative. So
Just
it's some
regular
sort of cold
disease.
going around.
I would not be surprised if I had that like last week, but I'm so used to being able to take a test to determine what I have. It was
Right.
like-
Well, COVID changed it. Like there's 1,000 other things you can get too, not just COVID.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I'm gonna just turn my video off and listen in and not look at your beautiful faces. So I apologize.
Well,
Well,
we
good luck
don't,
with the headache. I hate that.
we don't have a large number of pre-registrations, so it may not be a very large gathering.
Am I really just presenting to you guys, the people I see of almost every week?
That might be the case.
I like keeping tabs on what you're doing, Rod.
Okay, well, I did hear back from the city today. So I have my pre-application meeting scheduled for next week, which was ironically, what's his name that was with us all. I think
Abe.
almost everybody here was on the near Northwest Denver
Oh,
neighborhood.
Edson,
So he's my guy that they assigned to me. I was like, I met you a couple weeks ago.
Can't hurt.
No, he seems like a nice guy.
No, he's a nice guy.
well, it's 6:33. We'll give it 2 more minutes. I see that cat tree in your background, James.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that little rascal's he doesn't let me work. I need to train him to stay off my keyboards, and it's all day long. He's jumping on this table, jumping on me, jumping from here onto me. He's a little
James is-
rascal. I love him though.
He's a kitten.
Oh, he's a kitten, and he's a very, very affectionate little guy.
How old?
He's well, let's see. So he's got to be about, I don't know, he's probably about 3 months now.
Oh, so he's a kitten. So that's pretty
Yeah,
small.
yeah. He's maybe he's a little older than that. I don't know. The cat's kind of in my wife's department. I'm more the dog guy. But the cat and the dog are getting along great, so that's huge.
Yeah, well, once, like, especially if you get a kitten and you introduce them and they're just used to it from the get-go, that seems to go pretty smoothly.
Yeah, at first the cat didn't know what he was. My dog's a big cane corso, so he's a huge dog. He's big, muscular beast, but he's a softie. So at first our cat didn't know what he was. but now they've come to terms and they actually play with each other. It's pretty sweet to see.
Well, now that the weather's turning cool, that cat's just gonna curl up on that dog.
I know, right? It's true. I'm actually anxious for that. It's been close a couple times, and I mean, because I can't wait to get a picture of that.
Yeah. We had, so our friends, I don't know if you know, well, it's actually the people that I'm working on for this project I'm going to present, but they have a company called American Dog, and they make dog products, like anything fabric, like toys and beds, and they're out by Monaco, their thing. So they gave us one to, I don't know if I can show this on the camera, to test one of their new dog beds, and both of our dogs like curled up into it,
into a heart form.
Yeah, and then like, they just been like chilling on it.
It looks like it works.
Yeah.
Would you do me a favor? Would you give them my contact information and let them know that we've been contemplating a line of wooden pet product? And if they have any interest, if they have any interest in helping me with that project, to get a hold of me.
Yeah, absolutely. They just are launching like this whole new line of stuff with American Dog, and it's kind of this like made in America thing that they kind of started at the beginning of COVID. I'll share you all the information. I'll CC the group.
Our toy boxes often get used for pets, as do our toddler beds for large dogs. So it's been a market we've thought about, and I'd be curious to talk to them.
Okay. Yeah, no, they're great friends. They're obviously neighbors of mine. But we're the fortunate beneficiaries of like all of their test beta products, and they bring them over.
All right.
That's gotta be some affluent customers who who use your toddler beds as a dog bed.
Well,
when you got a big dog, he's got to have a place to call his own.
Yeah, that was like their medium sized one, and we have smaller dogs. Our dogs are only like 40 pounds, so they both fit on there, and they have the different sizes and everything. But yeah, they're a cool line of products. Their stuff is made out of, their toys are like fire hose material.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's like the toughest toys I've ever come across.
I bought one of the. I have something made out of fire hose material. I wonder if it came from them.
Well, it could have it, because they sell some of their stuff over at that one that's by Sprouts, that dog toy store over there, and I think they're also in Mouthfuls.
Mouthfuls is what I was thinking.
Yeah, but their big thing, I think, where they make their money is they have these like, like the men's shave club or whatever, but they do that for dog toys, and you get a box every month and you get on a subscription. I think that's the new thing. Subscriptions are the way to go. Yeah. I don't know if that's one of theirs.
Well, we're 8 minutes.
We're
8 minutes.
My dog got it though. Sorry.
We're 8 minutes past our start, kind of waiting for people, but I think we may as well get started. We may just end up with a very small crew. Welcome, everybody. Glad to see everybody's smiling face. Two quick things that James and I wanted to cover, not to really dig into, but just highlight. As previously highlighted in an email, the good news about our conservation overlay is that the working group and Naomi and Amanda met with Denver Community Planning and Development, and they have now been engaged and are going to start doing some of the language and some of the work that's required to move our overlay forward. So it's a very exciting transition we're in the middle of right now. And as that moves forward, we'll keep the PCD group up to date. The estimate is that it could be 6, 7, 8 months before it actually gets fully approved by the council. Some of that's dependent on the staff time that's available from the city planning department. But the working group's very excited the fact that we're moving forward at this point.
And even another update to that, we did
Great.
submit the official request to CPD to make the text, and just got back a confirmation on that today. So it is now being worked on.
Great. Thanks, Naomi. And the other topic really doesn't need much because of the email I sent out earlier today. But we do really want to start promoting the fact that there's going to be a very big issue coming up here over the next few months, and that's the potential of a multimodal bridge coming over from Fox Park to Sunnyside. There had been a study called the Next Step Study, for those of you that are not familiar with it. It was instigated about 2 years ago, maybe even 2.5 years ago, and it was thought to have been final about a year ago, but it turned out that it hadn't been until literally last week. So the link that I sent out was to the final version of the study, and one of the primary topics or the issues that the study was trying to tackle is how to get more cars into the Fox Park area, because without enough egress and ingress, it was hard to justify further development. And so there's improvements on the south end that are planned, and then there are 2 optional ways of bringing additional traffic to the north end of Fox Park. One is to go under Highway 70 up to 48th. And a year ago, that had been what had been verbally discussed as the likely outcome. So there was, that's where we thought it had been left, but it's come to light just in the last 30 days that there still is some consideration being given to coming across the rail tracks with a multimodal bridge that would land in Sunnyside on 47th. So that would be a big deal. And we want to make sure that we fully vet that. So you'll be hearing a lot about it in the coming months. And we'll be looking to both the city and the developer to keep us well informed and to work with us on the engagement within the community to really find out how the Sunnyside residents feel about that. James, anything to add to those 2 topics?
Nothing to add to that.
Okay. Well, then we'll jump in to our 3 agenda topics. And Rod, I believe you've got the first spot on the agenda. If you want to show us what you're planning on doing with this ADU, since I got a sneak peek, I'm
Sure.
excited to hear you talk about it.
Sure. So, hi, my name, just I guess for official, I'm Rod Kaczynski. I'm an architect in the neighborhood, and I'm working for some neighbors of mine that I'm developing a plan for that is larger than just an ADU. It's actually doing a renovation to the existing house, and then also creating a detached garage with an ADU on the second floor of that garage. And the property is currently zoned USUC1, which for the purposes of this conversation, and for those of you that don't know, means that it has a minimum lot size of 5,500 square feet. Unfortunately, their lot is only 4,690 square feet. So it's one of these lots that back in the day got subdivided with other parcels adjacent to it, and ended up being that 37.5-foot wide parcel, and was just sort of lumped in with the USUC1 zoning designation. And so I did some research and talked to like Amanda in her office, and kind of did some research with the planning board and looked at how the city has sort of historically rectified these non-conforming lots. It looks like the method that they have chosen, rather than granting out like a variance or something like that for the particular parcel, is to actually do a zone map adjustment and rezone that particular parcel more in accordance to how it, something that allows it to conform to what the size of the lot should be, which in this case would be USUB1 as in boy, which has a 4,500 square foot minimum lot size. So as far as the project goes, I've designed it to conform to every standard in the code. As far as bulk plane, lot coverage percentage being under the 37.5, setbacks, all of those sort of things. And in the zoning code, for an ADU is the only component of the project that has the criteria that it must meet the minimum lot size square footage requirement. That is not listed in the zoning code for even a detached garage. It doesn't have to, so quite frankly, I could do the project and have a detached garage back there without the ADU on the second floor, and I could do the addition to the house and all of that within the way it sits. But the clients would like to do the ADU as well. And so there's some historic precedent with this from the city, as well as it's been done around Sunnyside, and it's been done on other neighborhoods in the community where there's literally this sort of one or two lots that are kind of within a different designation and they don't quite conform, where the city just does a zone map adjustment and changes that one. So what I would like to do is go before the planning board and request a zoning map change for these parcels. But what I'm here today to do is request your guys' support to help facilitate that. And I'm also reaching out, obviously, to all of the neighbors, and we're getting support from them, and also from Amanda Sandoval's office and our city council person to get support to help make this project possible. I have done a small animation video that I did for the clients for the project that I brought ready to show. If you guys would like to see that, I know Bill has already seen it. And it's a couple minutes long. And then I've also got site plans to show you the project, and I can even bring it up in the project is in Revit, so I could show you in Revit like 3D models and all that stuff. So would everybody like to see the short animation that I've done that sort of just explains the project?
Yep, I would, Rod. Hey,
Okay.
real quick. Did you say that this would be, rather than a variance that you're seeking, this would actually be a spot rezoning of that lot?
Yes, it is, and I can share the screen with all the ones. I went back for the last couple of years and looked at all of the cases that have become before the board, and all of them that I found were voted unanimously, like by whatever quorum that they had at the time at the meeting, and it is a zone map change, and
Just for that lot, not for
just for that lot. And it does not always have to do, I didn't bring pictures of like the zone map layouts from the website where you can look them up, but I did record all of the application cases numbers, so I could provide that to you if you'd like. It doesn't look like it had to be adjacent to a similar lot zone lighting. There are several instances where there was a non-conforming C1 designation that they changed that one lot, property to a B1, which was because it was the one lot on that block that was like 37.5 feet wide. This block, just to sort of give you the context, is we're talking about between 41st and 42nd on Decatur Street. And this block, all of the houses or lots are designated USUC1. There are this lot and the one next to it are the two that don't conform on this side of the block or the street. And on the west side of the street, a little further at the north end of the block, there are six other properties that are non-conforming that are zone C1, but they're only 37.5 feet wide, so they don't meet the minimum square footage requirement. So there's quite a few lots on this particular stretch of street that don't meet the C1 designation. So, but what's triggered this is I went to apply for an application for the ADU address assignment with the right-of-way, and they denied it because that criteria is for the ADU specifically itself. It had to meet the minimum square foot requirement, so they're not allowed to proceed until I get approval from the zoning department.
So you're seeking B1.
Correct.
Whereas it seems like the majority of the lots in the what CPD uses, which is generally an 8-block radius around that immediate lot or that block, The majority of them are C1.
Everything's C1. The entire neighborhood's C1. But these lots don't conform to the C1 designation. And there are, I can give you, there are, let's see, I've got pulled up here. Let me bring it up. I have like 15 properties that they've redone from C1 to B1. And then I've got some other instances which were from C to B1, from B to B1, because those were obviously ones in the B to B1 where they were wanting to allow for an ADU.
Okay.
And then there's like another half a dozen or so applications where they've converted from C to C1, which again, they were wanting to allow for an ADU. So they changed the zone lot to accommodate an ADU.
Okay. I think Naomi in the chat just filled in a lot of the blanks for me. It's just, I was a little surprised that it'd be seeking a rezone rather than a variance, because my experience has been CPD likes to shies away from spot zoning, but apparently that's not the case when you're looking to rezone to a smaller lot size, when that lot truly is smaller. And I think that's what Naomi is trying to tell
Yeah,
us.
and then that caught me off guard too, because I thought this was going to be, because all the talk has been about how they support the inclusion of ADUs in the neighborhood, and this lot is already designated to allow for an ADU because it's in the C1 designation, but it just doesn't meet that 5,500 square foot requirement. I will say that in talking to one of the planners, like if it's in like within like a couple hundred square feet, they will just do an administrative variance or whatever, but this is almost 900 square feet short. So it's more than they can allow for the administrative variance.
Understood. Okay.
So, any other questions, or I can go ahead and start to share my screen here if you like. Can you guys all see the black screen?
Yep.
Yes.
So this is a little bit, it was an animation for the client. So it's got a little bit of like stuff in it that's not exactly, it's like a little fly through. So just, tell me when you want to cut it off. If you think you've seen enough, I'll go ahead and stop it. I kind of play around with these little videos and my clients like them.
Yes, it has music. Awesome.
Well, that was the soils test. So here's where I go and show you from the original house to the new structure. So here's where you can see the ADU on the back.
Hey, Rod, what size is that ADU? I'm sorry, I might have missed the conversation.
Up here, I'll cut it off because I can't hear you over the music.
Oh, no worries.
No,
worries.
I'm in. We gotta keep watching it.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, I like it too.
That's basically the end of it. The rest of it's just sort of some like glory shots of like different areas I'm creating on the house. That's the side that faces the house of the ADU.
So you're gonna run a gas line under there?
Yeah, there'll be a natural gas coming from the inside of the house out to their patio there for a little fire pit. So the other thing I've got and I can show you is I have brought the plans here so for you to look at, and this is the site basically here before, and then this is what we're creating after. So you can see the footprints. Right now, there's that little, if you saw it in the video, that little white sort of bump out, which is like kind of the entrance to their back of their house that we're going to tear off. And so what I'm creating, if you can see my mouse here, is this basic, this is the new portion of the house. So basically on that floor, it's about, we're creating like 274 square feet of new space there. And then obviously, as you saw from the videos, we're popping the top. And then we're creating a new garage, detached garage, and an ADU in the back. So you can see it in the elevation here. This is the new ADU, and it fits within all of the bulk plane stuff with the zoning, and it would fit both with the same with the B1 designation. Actually, to be honest with you, the one thing the B1 does is because it jumps to a 50% lot coverage from the 37.5. So, in theory, if we do get rezoned, you could cover some more lot, but they don't want to make it any bigger than it already is. So they're not looking to do that. So from a permitting standpoint with the C1 designation, I would be literally able to do everything in the drawing except for the second floor, which is, give me a second. I wrote it down. It's 481 square foot ADU on that second floor. I think that's what you were asking Troopy, the square footage.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's not a huge apartment. It's just a single, basically room, kind of loft type apartment up there, with an open floor plan and obviously a bathroom and a couple closets. I can show you the floor plan if you'd like. Have it in Revit here. That's the 3D house there. Cancel. So this is the second floor. You'd come up an outdoor stair to a door here and go in, and there's a kitchen area here element and a little obviously a laundry and a bathroom, and then this is all meant to be bedroom and a little dining area. So it's just a nice little single loft apartment kind of layout. And I've talked to them about how they would utilize that. They've talked about turning it into a long-term rental. They don't have any ambitions of being like Airbnb or something like that. And there are right next door to them to the north, is also an ADU on that property. So they're directly adjacent to a house that already has one. And so it's not, obviously the neighborhood is zoned for it, but it's already being done in the neighborhood. So basically, I'm asking for, I would love to have your guys' support as we take this through the building department process. Like I said, I just received word this afternoon for my pre-submittal meeting that you're required to have for this. So I'll probably have some more information from them and guidance. And then I'll start the process of going through getting it ready for before the planning board and that sort of thing.
Thanks, Rod. Anybody have questions?
I have a question, but I've spoken a little bit. So if anybody else has one, I'll let them jump in first.
And I'll leave this up in case somebody wants to see something.
So Rod, for those of us that are a little slower, could you go over one more time? So why you need this rezoning, what you want to do that you can't do under the current zoning, and what the new zoning will allow you to do, just so I could understand that from a very basic level.
Okay. Why we want to do this is the clients wanted to add an ADU to their property as an additional sort of income for their residents and have as a rental property. They've also considered it having as a guest suite for like visitors. They have family come to town quite a bit, and their current house does not allow for that. Right now, they're living in the basement. Their main bedroom is a non-egress windowed basement bedroom in the basement that's been there since the house was built. And they have 2 children that just left home and went off to school. And there's the 2 bedrooms on the main floor they'd like to convert. They're really small bedrooms. So they just like to have it so that kids could come home. So we're creating 3 bedrooms on the 2nd floor and turning the main floor space into an office and a larger kitchen area. Because right now their kitchen is literally, I think I can show you with the existing floor plans if you need to. It's like 12 square feet. Like their kitchen is literally like a 3 foot by 4 foot standing area with countertop around it. And so we're doing that part of the project. And they'd also have, if you notice on the existing, let me go back to that one here. This garage is literally like one of those old Model T garages they can't park a car in. So they'd like to have a garage to be able to park their vehicles in. So those components of the proposed project, the detached garage, the pop top on the house, the addition, all of it is allowed in the current zoning designation. The only portion of this project which I came up against a hurdle was when you go through the zoning code, when you get to the accessory dwelling unit, they have that it must meet the minimum square footage requirement for the zone lot. It's not even required for a detached garage. I could build the garage without the minimum zone lot coverage. In fact, I could build a 3-car garage here if that were the case, instead of the 2-car garage. But because there's an ADU associated with it, the setbacks are slightly different for ADU requirements than a garage requirement. And I held it in and actually made a smaller garage that met the ADU requirements. So the only portion of it that we're asking for, and the reason for the zone lot change, would be the ADU component of this proposed project.
So
Other
it's
than that-
not zone cover. It's not the lot size coverage necessarily.
No, in
It's
fact, I'm
not-
keeping the lot size coverage for this smaller lot at 37.5. Well, I'm at less than that. I'm at, let's see here. Sorry, I got to get to the right. I'm at 32% lot coverage with this proposed project. And I'm not planning on changing that, even though the B1 designation does allow up to a 50% coverage versus the 37.5 for the C1, but we're still going to keep it at this 32. They don't have the program meets their requirements. We're not expanding the program with the zoning change.
Okay.
So in actuality, I don't even need it to go to like a 50% lot coverage requirement. We're not asking for any expansion there. We're just asking for them to be able to do the ADU on this existing lot.
Okay.
But in order for the city to do it, it looks like their solution is to rezone it to B1.
Thank you. That answered my question.
Well, I for one think that not only is the project a very worthy project, but the small amount of difference between an acceptable lot and the lot you have, make this, something that I certainly would want to support. James, we haven't had to take a vote in quite a while. You still comfortable having our votes be after the fact via survey?
Not when it's a small group like this. I mean, it's a small enough group, we could almost do a show of hands on this one.
Okay.
Let me just, Rob, what would happen? So if you didn't get this rezone, how is the ADU out of the question?
As far as I know from the city, the way they're handling it, yeah, I would have to remove the ADU from the top of that garage and talk to them about whether they wanted the garage to go back to a 3-car garage or not. So I would have some rework to do on the project. I mean, it's not significant. I mean, it is significant, but it's not end of the world, but it's not really what they want. And when we went into this, quite frankly, I didn't think it was going to be this big of a deal, because I thought, Denver is encouraging it and their zone C1 And I was thinking, well, we'll have to go through some sort of variance process, but it won't be that, rigorous. I was kind of shocked that that was the way that the city actually takes care of it. So in some ways I got myself in trouble with this because I kind of told them we could do it and it wouldn't be that big of a deal. And now it's turned into slightly bigger of a deal than I originally thought, but we'll make it work. And, if they can't have the ADU, I think it's kind of sad because virtually everybody else on the block is allowed to have an ADU because there are lots of the 50-foot wide lots. And it looks like other areas of the city has already granted people the right to do ADUs on lots of this size if they were a B1.
And just for some background, the thing that's Rod is facing right now, as he found when he did his research, is happening all over the city. And it's something that, Councilman Sandoval has found and been pushing CPD on when we do these big rezonings, because zoning is painted with such a broad brush. There are tons and tons and tons of properties like this that are just slightly smaller, because there's always variation in property sizes and neighborhoods, that per our rules right now can't build detached ADUs, even though our ADU standards are graduated by lot size anyway. So there is actually a process that CPD, the planning department, is kicking off right now to address this very issue, as well as other design standards around ADUs. I'll put I think that some of you might be aware of it, but I'll take every opportunity to give it a shout out because it's going to be a really interesting project. And ideally at the end of it, it'll take about a year because they're going to study impacts and stuff. But things like hopefully these rezonings that are just to rezone in order to get ADUs will not have to happen because they're going to fix the standards in the zoning code pertaining to ADUs that are causing this issue.
And just so you know, the ADU itself meets all the other criteria that Naomi was sort of alluding to. Like there are maximum sizes of the floor plan that you can have in certain size lots, and it meets this size lots requirements. It's got to be like 75% of the footprint of the first floor space. So it meets all of those other criteria.
Trupti, do you have a question?
Yeah, well, I want to say that I think we should support this. If we're going to take a vote, I support this. And this really is a weird, one-off situation in almost right sizing a problem, a problem created really by the code itself in a sense. There's nothing in it that is, of any negative impact to the community or otherwise. And in fact, if we didn't vote yes on that, we'd be creating a negative impact for this resident. So I'm definitely 100% in support. It kind of hits all of the things like, we want that density. We want options of a small studio apartment for, a young person starting out in their career to be able to live in our neighborhood. And the design itself is beautiful. I think you did a great job, Rod. So
I'm including brick, just so you know.
It's incredible.
Yes.
I just and I do support it. For me, it hinges a lot on whether or not you would still be able to do an ADU without changing the zoning, and that's something that I think you could get beat up. And you said no to that.
Well, that's what
it sounds like you're confident in that. It's just that I feel like that's where someone could pick at this. Well, you could do it under the current, but you can't, so they can't take that angle.
No, there's that very specific part just in the ADU section that says it must meet the minimum lot size designation requirement. And that's not in there for any other accessory structure or in there for a detached accessory garage. So like for some reason they didn't include that criteria. When you look at all the box of the criteria in the zoning and you're going through like the detached garage section, they don't even have a minimum square foot lot requirement. It's only when you get to the ADU portion of the detached structures that it becomes that. And that's where I ran into the hurdle with right of way, because they kind of like their hands are tied at right of way because they're like, well, we can't give you the approval because the zone lot doesn't conform.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. And there are.
Yeah, it was a weird one.
Well, it's funny. The funny thing is, I believe my house is a weird one, and I've just been talking to, and I'm not even planning to do something, but I thought in the future I might, for purpose of either aging in place or having my mom live there because my mom comes, a few months out of every year, that kind of stuff. And I found I fall into a weird exception because of Main Street. And it's like 2 houses on my block are Main Street, and then the rest of the block and across the street is not zoned Main Street. It's really weird, but I'm in a weird one-off that, I'm just learning about it now, so I don't have issues in the future, but I get that, some of it is just almost created, this is a problem created. And I think this is good to undo that.
Has anybody else who hasn't had a chance to speak have a question? I am getting a little concerned with time frame, so if people don't have questions, I'd like to move on to a show of hands, but I want to give people a last chance.
And just so you know, like this that I've shown up on the screen right now, those are all the lists of the ones that I think were directly correlated to zone lot map changes that were made to accommodate an ADU scenario that somebody was trying to build. So you can see there's just quite a few. And then like, say, for instance, this one, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's a 3/4 of a dozen houses on there. And I'm happy to share this with you guys to see this one at the top here. These two are on 43rd and Bryant and 45th and Winona. 2 that are sort of islanded C1, they're everything else is C1 around these specific lots that were passed. So those 2 are the most relevant because 1, they're in Sunnyside, and 2, they're exactly what we're up against and what we're talking about in this situation. Because they were C1 in a C1 neighborhood and they're changing them to B1.
Lindsay, Mike, Frank, anybody have any questions or comments?
Here, and
so I think we're ready to hold a vote on this. So our guidelines are that if you are a resident or a business owner or own property in Sunnyside and you've attended this presentation given by Rob, you are allowed to vote. We work on the honor system in that way. So I'm going to go ahead, and given the number of people, Naomi, you won't be voting on this, correct?
No.
You never do.
Just to you need to take the presentation down so you can see everything.
Well, I want to give her, a chance. Just
I'm happy to share my.
There you go.
I just don't want Naomi to feel excluded. I know she.
Oh, shucks.
Anyway, she's always here. She's our one steady. But I'm because we have some people on the phone, I'm actually going to go down the list, and if everyone wouldn't mind saying yay for a yes vote, they support a letter of support for the rezone to B1, or a nay, or you can also abstain or let us know that you don't meet the qualifications to vote as you're not a Sunnyside resident, business owner, or property owner. So I am voting. I'll start with myself. I vote yes on this. Shupti?
Yay.
Bill?
Yay.
Michael Lofgren?
Yay.
All righty, and going down the list here, Frank?
I'm going to abstain. I was very late to this meeting and first time just checking it out.
No problem.
Thank you for joining.
Yes, thank you for joining. Glad to have you. Lindsay?
Yay.
Thank you. Michael Morales?
Yay.
All right, Rod, you get the vote. We have always allowed, haven't we, Bill?
Yeah, we've considered going to a rule where the person bringing the project doesn't vote, but we've never established that rule. And our history is to allow a vote.
Well, obviously,
you don't have to speak.
You can always abstain if you'd rather.
I already put you down, buddy.
Okay, thank you.
You're like, no, I say no, I don't like the architect. And then we have one individual on the phone. I don't have your name at 303-797-9119.
And they're muted. Oh, there you go.
Yep, this is actually Stacia and Jonathan. So we
Oh.
called in from our conference line. So we'll turn on our camera here in a bit too once we're ready to present. But that's us on here. So sorry for the confusion.
Okay, and you are both yay?
No, they're
Well,
non-residents, I
They're
believe.
not residents.
Oh, you're non-residents. I apologize.
No
Okay.
No worries.
All right, so the vote as I have it is 7 yay and 1 abstain.
Great. Congrats, Rod.
Thank you.
And thanks. It was a great presentation and a fantastic project. Glad to have it come into the neighborhood.
No, I'm excited because my backyard is about 35 feet from this property. So, I'm obviously not going to be doing something that is going to impact like on our block.
No, we trust you.
Great. Well, our next agenda topic is, in some ways it's an ADU, in some ways it's not, but it's at 47th and Clay. And Michael, you're going to take us through what you're looking to do.
Sounds good. So my wife Katie and I are the owners at 4690 North Clay Street. It's an awkward little property built in 48. It's a 700 square foot house way back on the alley, literally on the alley of a 6,200 square foot lot. It is a corner lot. And even though the house is small and older, we've done some work to it, flooring, cabinets. It was a 2-bedroom when we bought it. We took out a non-structural. So this stands as a 1-bedroom with a crawl space and no second floor. So just straight 700 square feet. We just had our first son, so we're a growing family, and we'd love to stay in the neighborhood. But obviously we need more room. There's work from home situations going on. And the boy's going to need a bedroom eventually. So, so definitely a must. We'd like to build a new house. Well, I guess I'll go here as well. So we're trying to go from USUC to USUC1 for an ADU. I think it's a little more straightforward than the last presentation since we meet the minimum square foot requirement. We'd like to, build a house that matches the neighborhood better. That the new house would obviously match up the front of our house to all of our neighbors up on Clay Street. And then we'd like to have a 2-car garage in there as well. We do not have architecturals or structurals yet. But we would like to get a garage in there, whether it be a 1 or a 2. Let's see, garage to hold the cars. Small density increase for the ADU. So we're doing it opposite. We live in the ADU and we're trying to build the main house. And given this is a 1-bedroom house that we live in now, the ADU, it's a pretty small density increase. It'd be 1 person or at most a couple. Would love to stay in the neighborhood by building. Otherwise, with the growing family, we're gonna have to make the choice and move somewhere else for larger square footage. And this is like I said, this is a very awkward property. We have a pretty worthless front yard. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. I've never actually done this before, but here we go. Is that working?
It is.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is our tiny little house back here. It's got 1 bedroom, it's got 1 parking spot, and it's got a little concrete front patio there. The idea is to build a fence right here between the ADU and the main house. And then this would be the ADU right here existing. And then we would build a new house right here. Roughly buildable, setbacks will obviously affect this, but buildable measurements look like about 45 wide by 65 deep, measuring from clay to alley. Obviously that's going to fluctuate, but that's about what we measured, giving it some setback and some breathing room. I think that's basically it. So the garage would go here. facing, as you can see, a lot of people in the area, they have their garage facing 47th. So we would like to do that as well, whether it be a 1 or a 2. And then the rest of this would be house to match up with the neighbors, basically.
And how many square feet on that house were you thinking?
Like I said, we don't have drawings yet. As soon as, when we get rezoned, we're going to pay an architect to give us drawings, but we're thinking 20. So we'd like to do a basement, a main floor, and a second. If we can't do a basement, that's okay, but 2,200 to 2,500, something like that.
And the rezoning request is simply the formality of having an ADU.
Yeah, doing it, opposite the way other people most likely do it. We have the ADU, we want to build the main house. But yeah, same request. We want to be able to build a main house and then have this existing for income property. And once again, no plans for any short-term rental or anything like that.
But there is rezoning required.
Well, because,
yes.
because it's zone C right now, which
Correct.
doesn't allow an ADU, which,
Correct.
if you followed the rules, they'd make you tear down the garage, the existing ADU.
Yeah. And we've already done a decent amount of work inside, just, cosmetically and all that. So we'd like to keep this. We think it's a nice little studio for, a nice little 1-bedroom house for somebody. So,
So what are you looking to have it zoned then? It's currently zone C?
yeah, C to C1.
So even though they're doing it in reverse, James, the rezone is as if it was just a main house and they wanted.
No, I
to rezone
under,
that.
yeah, no, I completely understand. I just wasn't sure what we were contemplating here.
Hi, Michael. I've got a question. I might have missed this, but you're gonna, sorry about my dog. You're gonna put build a main house. The main house is actually gonna have its own garage, which is gonna be an attached garage, I assume, right?
Correct. Attached to the main house.
Okay.
And then there would be a fence between the ADU and the main.
So what happens with I'm just curious, what happens with the lot coverage aspect? Would you be able to meet it, or are you gonna end up having to come back for a variance because you won't be meeting the lot coverage requirement, whatever it is right now, whether it's 50% or 37, and I don't know. So,
It's 37.5.
so are you going to be able to build the house you want with that attached garage and still be, falling within the lot coverage is needed? Because I'm just wondering whether you're going to then come back for a variance when you actually need that too. So just curious.
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. When we have our drawings, hopefully we have an architect that knows this area pretty well and can size the house appropriately. And if
There's a good one on the call.
Yeah,
yeah, that's true. We do have one on the call.
Put my card up there.
and he lives in the neighborhood. He knows it well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and I'd be happy, Michael, to talk to you about it a little bit. You don't have to hire me or anything, but I do know the neighborhood pretty well. And just to answer your question, Troopty, I've worked on enough of these. He could absolutely build a pretty nice house there
Okay,
and still stay within the 37.5%.
got it. That's what I couldn't
The
tell.
one question I would bring up though is adding, I know 47th already currently has some curb cuts on the other side of the street there, but
Yep.
they don't have any on your side of the street. And typically they don't allow new curb cuts unless 50% of the stuff on the block already has curb cuts. So there may be some right of way pushback to this that needs to be rectified.
Okay. Yeah,
I just know you're going to run up against that.
47th on both sides of the street. Actually, there's quite a few curb cuts. I don't know if it's 50%, but there are quite a few of them.
Yeah, well, maybe there is more than that. So you probably have a pretty good argument to get it to get it in there, because especially since with the ADU, you wouldn't be able to get a car to a garage, obviously, from the alley. But it's just something to think about, that it's going to be something they're going to question, because they don't like doling out curb cuts to begin with.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just
Fair enough.
right away.
So if you're you mentioned 2,500 on square feet, you've got 700 already. So that comes to 1950 on a 6,098 square foot lot. So that's only
I think he's thinking
32%.
about the 2225 as the main house all by itself for them and their family, while the 700 or.
I know, I agree. I'm adding 700 to a footprint on the main house at 1250. That comes in 1950 on a 6,098 square foot lot. That's 32% coverage, so well under 37.
Oh, yeah, yeah, Rod kind of cut, you know. You know.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
I've
didn't hear
experienced,
Rod
you
throw
gotta
out
cover
those
that.
numbers. I'm sorry, I didn't hear Rod throw out those numbers, Troopty.
No, just the fact that on that size lot, he can build this size footprint and be under the 37
He
requirement.
should be able to. He should be, without.
Yeah, I thought it was a should. I'm actually putting pen to paper.
Oh, thank you. Awesome. So I've got maybe a suggestion
Sure.
for Michael. I mean, with the amount of unknowns and some things, considerations you might not have thought of, which could change your plan even, would it make sense to go talk to the planning department, have a conversation with Naomi, a conversation with Rod? I'm just wondering whether you come back for what you're looking for after, figuring some of those things out, and possibly even with, something, not a full drawing or rendering, but a better idea of what it's going to look like for the rezoning, because you don't need the rezoning to start any of this other paperwork or anything. You can come back for all of it at the same time.
Right. Yeah, I'm more than happy to come back next month with, a basic sketch that kind of shows you more about the lot coverage and a little bit more about the details and the right of way and all that.
How many square feet did you say your lot was?
I believe I was corrected. I said 62. It is 6,100.
Okay, you're just over it. So 6,000 square feet and up, you're allowed an 864 square foot ADU. So your 700 square foot ADU would conform. I was a little worried that you might be too big, because if you were under 6,000 square feet, 650 square foot is the largest ADU you can have. And so so you're fine there. I just wanted to know you're kind of like right on the borderline of then having to ask for some other permissions, like Troopty was sort of suggesting, making sure everything kind of, but I just really quickly went and looked, and just to make sure, and you're good on that side. So that building isn't, the existing ADU would still conform to all the other requirements of an ADU.
Thank you,
Perfect.
Rod. That
Thank
is
you.
some wonderful service our residents get by having you on this call. Appreciate that. I appreciate it.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
So, I mean,
Okay.
anyway, I don't have any other questions specifically here, right? But, is this something we are ready to take for a vote, or would we want to take a vote? Or how do James and Bill feel about him coming back with something closer to some kind of sketches when he wants to go for this?
James, I'm not sure your thoughts, but I have the same thoughts that Troopty did, that I think getting a little bit more information from Michael would be helpful, be it next meeting or the meeting after, if Michael's amenable to that.
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
being cognizant of cost, because you don't want to head down a path of renderings and drawings and whatnot that are very expensive to only find out that you won't get the zoning. But I do agree, we'd like a little better idea as to what's possible, and maybe some very rough renderings of what it might look like with sizes specifically.
Yeah, and
That
that being
curb cutout
that being
really
said,
threw you
Michael,
off.
I mean, generally speaking, I'm quite certain that we'll be supportive, but
I
I
agree.
think there are enough issues here, but be it curb cut and a variety of other things, that just coming back with a little bit more info would be helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yep. So I'm in the building and construction industry myself, so I think I can draw something that looks pretty decent. And then we can go from there, and I can go for a vote in a month. I'm perfectly fine with that.
I will tell you one thing, you got yourself one heck of a lot right there on the
Beautiful.
corner in
Yeah.
a prime area, right near Rocky Mountain Park and everything. That's gonna be awesome. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you. Like I was saying, we love the neighborhood, and we don't want to leave. And being in the industry, we're not planning on building this and selling it. We would want to live here for 10, 15 years for sure. This
And,
is,
and
we
everything
we
you're
really
talking,
like the location.
yeah, everything you're talking about is right in line, with like what Bill said. I think we want to be supportive of people who want to live here, stay
Mhm.
here, build here, live, age in place, having that rental income, plus you're providing another small apartment, for
Mhm.
up and coming, like everything, you're saying, I think the community would be supportive of. But to me, I think that garage and not being able to do a cutout could change your plans.
Well, you
significantly.
said, is there a curb cut right there behind that Jeep?
No, so the
Oh.
closest curb cut is right here. It's my neighbor
It's across the
across
street.
47th.
Across, okay, yeah.
And there's, like I said, there's multiple up and down this street as well. But
Yeah,
no,
but what
there
they
is
do
not.
is they say 50% of the block must have one. And
Okay.
that's the rule. One other, this like heads up, if that tree is in the front setback, you might talk to the forestry department. They basically charge an assessment for removing trees that are within the front setback. And
Sure.
generally it usually runs about $100 an inch in diameter. So just be aware, it looks like that's about 24 inches. You might,
There it is in relation to my neighbor's front of his house.
yeah, so you're real close. You might just check where that is in the front setback, because you're just going to be assessed before a building permit will be released. If
Mhm.
you want to remove it, maybe you keep the tree and it's as your design develops, I don't know, but if you're planning on removing the tree as part of the design, just be aware that that's something
Yeah.
that can pop up, and they won't issue your building permit until the forestry department is signed off.
Okay. When I had my PowerPoint pre-application with Denver, he mentioned it was on my lot and not in the boulevard, so I would be able to chop it down without a fee. But
Well, just be careful,
I'm not
because
sure, yeah.
if it's in the front 20-foot setback, they will assess you the fee. So
Okay.
yeah,
You said 20 foot from edge of sidewalk or a curb?
no, from your property line. So, and
Oh,
that's
okay.
that's the pickle, is because those people don't really know all the time where the property line is. Like, for example, my property line is 8 feet up into my yard, past beyond the sidewalk, is where my
Okay.
actual boundary is. So there's, 8 feet of my front yard that I mow is actually public right of way. So it's not from the sidewalk, it's from your property boundary.
Well, I'm going to put a headlamp on and go measure that.
Yeah, so if you have any pins out there to measure your corners, and just make sure it's outside of that,
Sure.
front 20-foot setback.
Absolutely. Okay. So what I'm being asked for, I know there's a time crunch here. So what I'm being asked for to provide here is basically just a bird's eye view, rough sketch of kind of the main points, the curb cut, what the front looks like, maybe maybe a front facade rendering of some type, distance between the ADU and the main house, where the garage, like that kind of stuff.
Yes, but I think this is Tripty, and I want to make sure that what you sketch out actually is going to be doable. And then
Okay.
you share that with us, not what you want
Right.
to do, just like we're talking about, but parts aren't doable. So yeah, once
Okay.
you know what's doable, then a simple sketch that, anything that shows us. Yeah, but like I said, my biggest concern is that garage and your ability to do it there. And if
And-
that wasn't going to be there, how would you switch it up to make, to
Yeah.
get what you want?
And Michael, I might recommend, if you don't have a survey of the property, that you get one, because property lines, if you have no pins out there that certify where your lines are, I just, from working on so many of these in the neighborhood, the sidewalks and streets are notorious for not lining up with where property boundaries actually are.
Okay.
So it's difficult to sort of pull measurements off of, say, the pavement on your sidewalk.
Makes
and
sense.
Understand. So, and the truth is, if it goes forward, you're absolutely going to need that anyway for the city,
Sure.
for submittals. So it's not like wasted expense that you're not going to utilize in the long run.
Michael, thank you very much. We'll look forward to in the next month or two, seeing you come back with more information, and we'll be ready for a vote at that time.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks, Michael.
Good luck.
Thank you.
So our third presentation of the evening is very much switching gears from the last two presentations. This is a potential development in the station area. So I will turn it over to Stasia and Jonathan to present their concept and tell us more about what they're planning.
Great, thank you. And Bill appreciates the late notice and getting on the agenda. We kind of came in late, so appreciate the ability to do that tonight. I'm already feeling a little bit handicapped because we don't have a video, but we did provide some initial sketches, which we'll get to in a minute. As you mentioned, Jonathan Bush, Stacia Giebers, we're both with LCP Development. We are the developers of the project. In terms of just kind of a brief introduction, LCP is a privately held Denver-based development company, development and management company. We specialize in suburban as well as urban infill, mixed use and redevelopment. And if you would like, I'm happy to talk about some of the projects we've done in Denver. And I never know when we talk to a group that's there's so much information available on the internet that you may have availed yourself of a website and seen some of our projects. But we've done
we've lost you. You may have hit mute.
There we go.
Can you hear
Are we
us
back?
now?
We're back.
Perfect. Okay.
All right, not sure where I dropped off, but relative to some of our other projects, we've done 2 projects on 38th. We've done a couple of projects in Rhino. We're finishing a project right now at Santa Fe and Evans, and one at 8th and Grant, all of which are mixed use in some form or fashion. I think one of the important kind of values we have as a company is that we're designing high quality projects, that fit into the neighborhoods in which they're built. We're very sensitive to materials, and we're very sensitive to context. So, we're excited about this project. It's in our wheelhouse of what we would consider urban infill. I think those of you that are, somewhat familiar with that site, the majority of the site is a vacant lot. There's a metal building that occupies kind of the hard corner, adjacent and 42nd. We have the program we looked at currently does not include repurposing that building. We took a shot at that. That didn't ended up not working. But our hope is that we can repurpose some of the materials to find themselves in the project. I think in terms of kind of status, we have submitted our pre-application, which was a rezoning from IMX3 to a proposed, at the time, we had proposed a CRX8. After conversations with the city, they recommended that that be a 5-story zoning, in which we're going to go back. It's CRX5, and I'll let Stacia talk a little. I think in how that fits in with the other neighborhood plans and context.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share our screen here. Find. Too many windows open here. Okay, here we go. So we don't have a fun video like Rodney did, so we can't give you any fun videos and music with that, but we do have a basic rendering here. But like Jonathan said, we went in at our pre-application that CRX8 based on the 41st and Fox area plan. This side of the adjacent street, we could go up to 8 stories. And we saw across the street on the other side of Jason Street, they are doing CRX8 as well. But based on the city's comments, we thought, and we also agree, doing the step down from 8-story to 5-story down into more of those townhomes just to the west of us was probably the right plan for us. So this is the plan that we're working with currently. And so with that, we're looking to submit our application for CRX 5. The city did mention that this side from Blueprint Denver, it was zoned or classified as urban, and kind of under that urban plan also calls for urban centers or the CRX 5 plans as well. And with that, kind of some of our materials that we're planning for, which this doesn't show it great, but we're looking to do more decorative metals, wood, masonry, some exposed concrete, and then a ton of landscaping. And so that's primarily the materials for the building. And then also the city recommended us doing an affordable component as well, which we plan to do based on the city's guidelines as well. So those are kind of the main thoughts I have at the moment, and I can roll here.
It's something.
Can I interrupt? Because I didn't. What was the last bullet point you just meant that the city requested a what?
An affordable component to apartments. So there's a voluntary affordable component that I know developer just directly to east of us here had to follow. And also the city told us that, it's voluntary, but it's really not voluntary. So we will follow their guidelines within that as well.
Something which I think is, and again, kind of the shifting from an 8-story to a 5-story, which I think if you look across, whether it's kind of the majority of the comp plan, the neighborhood plan, Blueprint Denver, all kind of suggest that mid to high, and so we feel 5 is the appropriate height. This particular site, if you've been to that metal building, as you walk up, it sits about 2 or 3 feet above Jason Street, and the alley in the back is probably anywhere from 4 to 6 to 8 feet above that site. So by the time we get down to grade at Jason and back up to that alley, what really is, although we're looking at a 5-story building, in reality, it's probably a lot more like a 4-story building along the alley as it relates to the townhouses and the residents to the west. So I think it's even a little more dramatic step down than just going from 8 to 5. So I think we'll take advantage of how that site functions. So we'll have some commercial area and some common areas street facing on Jason, and behind that will be coverage structure parking, and then we've got some room on the back to do some parking off of the alley.
Looking at these planned to be condominium units?
These are apartments. I'm sorry, and so these are 71 for rent apartments. And just as again another context, and before we get to this point, I think this is Plan 6, and we have a 7. So we do a lot of iterations and trying to kind of dial into what we think is right. We had a plan that was density up to 100 units. It was pretty much of a monolithic block and not one that we felt was appropriate. This design relaxed that a lot, provides a lot of breathing room off of the street, off of Jason, a lot of articulation. And I think one of the, as Stacey was talking about the materials, and I'm happy to, go into other projects we did and examples. We did the Shake Shack in Rhino, which is a PEMB, it's a metal building. We did that next to a 2-story, 100-year-old masonry building we renovated, historic building. Then next to that was a 3-story kind of metal and masonry building we did. There was office and retail. We did the architect, Meridian 105, that is doing this, has done a number of really interesting projects in the Highlands neighborhood. They also did Edgewater Public Market with us. If you have had a chance to, I don't know if you've been to the food hall there or been there, but I think one of the things we get, a project we probably maybe get some of the most compliments from is that project, and largely due to Chad Mitchell, who's the architect on this. So we're very comfortable and confident that I think this will fit nicely into the context of the neighborhood in terms of the other projects, the other materials, but also be differentiated. There's a lot of, we compete with a lot of big institutional apartment developers that kind of build the same thing. That's not what we do. We don't build the same thing. So, this is going to look like any, we don't have 5 of these. This will be a unique project. It'll be unique to this site. The design, the concept will all be unique. So we don't kind of do cookie cutter sort of projects. And I think this is one that, again, it's part of our ethos. We want to make sure that, we're using high quality materials and is a project that will be a long-term asset to the neighborhood. Not something that's going to look great for a couple of years and then not. So, but we apologize right now. This is largely a massing study. I realize it doesn't have a lot of fenestration. It doesn't have a lot of detail to really give you some of that character. But in size and kind of massing, I think gave you, hopefully provides some context of what we're looking at doing.
Tripti, I'm not sure if your hand's up or if that's from previous.
No, it's up for this. So hi, my name is Tripti. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. And obviously
Of course.
you're pretty early on. So I guess you said 71 units. What are the sizes of these units? How big or how small? How much parking will you be putting in? What's the percentage of affordable that you're going to be doing? So number of units or percentage. And then lastly, who's going to own and operate this?
Yeah, so Tripti, I'll try to see if I can remember all of those.
I just want to get them out there. So
No, you're good. So the first one is unit size. And this will have a slightly smaller unit size. And we'll have a high number and maybe 50% or more that's a studio that will likely be in the 500 square foot range. And a couple reasons for that. We found, we did a project at 35th and Larimer, one of the very early apartment projects in Rhino. Out of the 66 units we had there, 10 were micros, and those were 330 feet. They were the first units to lease. We developed, we finished a project that I talked about. It's called the Overland at Santa Fe and Evans, 140 units. Literally the first 40 units that flew off the shelf were our studios, some of which were down in the low 400 square foot. So, and part of that is just, honestly, it's the affordability with not a capital A, it's a little a, that when you're in a chunk rent of $1,400 or $1,500, that actually is affordable. So this will be a smaller unit size. I mean, we're talking the average unit size will be under 700 square feet. So a mix of more ones and studios and ones, some 2 bedrooms. But again, I would say arguably a more affordable price point. In terms of the answer of how much is affordable, city guidelines or what they're putting out right now is that if it's, I think 60% AMI, it's 8%. And if you go up to 12%, then you're 50% 60 AMI and 50% 80. So I think across the street, they were plus or minus about 10%. So my guess is we'll probably land in that program of 10% affordable. Now, the good news is that with the unit size we have, a lot of those will already almost get really close to qualifying in that affordable range. So parking under the CRX5, it's a 0.75. I've worked alongside Chris Nevitt for a while, and I think we are believers that when you're this close to light rail, which we believe we are.
Oh, you dropped again.
Sorry. Are we back?
You are.
All right, sorry about that. I don't know, maybe we time out on our mute for some reason. But parking.
I can appreciate that parking thing, but what I would say is maybe, your folks may want to go study what's happening around Zia right now, because Zia has parking, but they're charging for parking. A lot of people are, and I think it may be full. But regardless, what I'm finding along that corridor, and there's going to be more apartment buildings and more apartment buildings, I'm finding people parking in driveways, on the fire lane, illegal parking all around. And I would say, while I agree with you 100% that we want less parking or less cars in a TOD
Right.
area, what's really happening is we are not there. The mentality of people not having cars isn't there yet. But I would say, you know, for us as a neighborhood, we're gonna have to worry about what's happening around Zia 5 times over in the next 5 years with all of the development that's happening. So I would say that could be an issue. I get that, you know, your 0.75 is where you are, but I do think that we need to be cognizant of what actually happens, not what we want to happen. Because I didn't expect
No,
that.
you know, yeah, a point well taken. And you know, we've been down this, you know, road before. We've done a couple other TOD projects, and, you know, we've had success with less parking, and our project at 35th and Larimer is one of those. You know, for the 10 units out of that 66 micros, none of those were provided with a parking space, and that seemed to work out. We found that a lot of people didn't have a car. They were, you know, again, they were finding alternate means of transportation, and argue that wasn't even a TOD. At 35th and Larimer, there wasn't a light rail station 2 blocks away. So, yeah, no, but we certainly appreciate that. We understand, and there's always pressure, and you know, there are kind of changing ownership patterns, and we need to be sensitive to that. So,
And
Rod,
then
you've
I
got
think
your
the
hand up.
last question was who's the owner and operator?
we're the owner and operator. We self-manage all of our properties, yeah, so we will own and manage the asset. We've got, I don't know, 40 some projects under management, 1.5 million feet. My partner and kind of our guy that runs our management group has been doing this for a long time, and there are 5 managers in Denver. They're as good as he is.
Great,
So,
thank you very much.
Go ahead, Rod.
Hi, guys. So I'm sorry if you covered this earlier. This isn't 4150 Jason, it's 4155 Jason, correct? The big steel building on the corner?
Right. It looks like,
Yes.
yeah, it looks like it says that there, so that should be
Yeah,
corrected.
I was just, because 4150 would fall on the east side of the street. You guys are on the west side of the street, on the north end of that block on actually
Right,
42nd.
right.
Okay, I just
Yeah,
want to confirm that because I was trying to orient with your perspectives and figure out what was the front and what was the back. And so this is actually facing, this is the west side, and your facade, your front door, let's say the front facade will face east, back down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
off of Jason.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I just wanted to orient myself because I was like I was like, wait, that doesn't line up.
We're 4151 to 4155.
Right, on the other side of the street there. Okay. So my question has to do with, I get this is just a massing model and doesn't have a lot of the fenestration shown. What your guys' thoughts were on engaging the street and promoting like walkable neighborhoods. You know, we've had a lot of development lately go up, like, you know, one at 44th and Tennyson was one of the ones that, you know, was pretty problematic, and it's not in Sunnyside, but doesn't really engage the sidewalk or the public right of way very well. And I wanted to just get sort of some thoughts on what you think. You know, obviously, you know, the city has fenestration rules at the street level, but you've got this sort of elevated platform there that sort of takes activity away from the street, and how you envision the ultimate sort of what's the functionality on that main floor, how it engages the neighborhood and sort of promotes to the public realm and sort of engages the right of way there.
Yeah, and you know, I think on where that elevated kind of green area is that the proposal right now is because the alley is elevated, it's going to be very difficult to kind of drop into the parking off of the alley. Notwithstanding, we understand that, you know, the city would prefer that, Public Works would prefer, but where you kind of have the first part of that, the south side of that building is going to be where you would enter into the parking. That's probably a slightly wider opening than is necessary, but all of that frontage, but for the access into the ground floor parking, would be either some combination of lobby, building amenities, and retail. So the hard corner is definitely proposed as retail, and whether that's restaurant or other, that is intended. And what's interesting, and again, I'm not going to pick on any developer, Alloy across the street, which you guys approved on the hard corner, they made a choice of not putting retail on that hard corner. Instead moved it farther down south into the project. And I think that hard corner is actually some of their building amenities, which is fine. But we are gonna activate that hard corner with retail.
Okay, so that little area there, I kind of read that as like a glass enclosure below that greenscape. That's actually going to be like an entrance for vehicular access to the parking garage.
It will be part of it, and it looks like it's probably a little wider than it needs to be in that massing.
Okay.
Yeah. Rod, I'm glad you covered that, and I guess I'll just add 2 cents. I'm really disappointed to hear that regarding the design. Just for your information, I mean, not that we've taken a vote or anything, but in general, there's a lot of interest by many residents and people active on PCD that we really want Jason to be the main street of the kind of the town center street for the TOD area. So to have a good chunk of this building facing Jason to simply be an entrance into a parking garage is disappointing versus what normally would have been thought to be expected, which would be through the alley. I don't know how anybody else feels about that, but that's disappointing to hear.
Yeah, I'd like to see that if there was a possibility. I understand the logistical hurdles of like doing that, but to cut up the right of way with vehicular access really sort of creates a boundary and a connection along that street, and especially taking activity off the street and elevating it on a platform, I think sort of takes away. I mean, that's just my opinion there, and I would like to see a little bit more development in how that really engages with the street. And I realize this is very early on conceptual,
Right.
and there's a lot of work to do. But that would just be my thoughts.
So Tripty has her hands up, but I'd like to invite other comments from people that haven't spoken yet, if there's anybody. Tripty, go ahead.
I'm sorry, actually, I think I put something in chat. Hold on. How much retail space are you envisioning?
I'm sorry?
How much retail space in terms of total square footage are you envisioning?
I would say somewhere between 6,000 to 8,000 square feet.
Oh, that's great.
I'm sorry, 4,000 to 8,000 square feet. And Bill, and Rob, I do want to go back to 2 comments. And I as looking at that elevation and that massing, I think that opening is much larger than is going to be required for the access. And in looking at, you guys obviously know this neighborhood very well. Zia broke up their project with access off of Jason. So I think the precedent is certainly, and again, I'm looking at a much larger project across the street. I think they will have less retail than we do in terms of fronting on Jason. So we will, like I said, we are extremely interested in and desirous of making that animated. And part of that, why we have that kind of rooftop garden, is to animate that frontage and the setback and create some interest. There's a lot of monolithic development out there, and this is intended to be a little more articulated. But clearly understand the desire for retail. We believe in that. And again, part of the the retail too is a struggle depending on the zoning and depending on what parking is required. And so, Rob, you are painfully aware of of, you squish on that envelope, that balloon, and you squeeze on one end and it comes out the other. And retail is great, but, the difference between 4.5 spaces per thousand and 2 or 2.5 is a big difference. So, we're trying to find that right balance, but clearly, we appreciate those those are great comments.
James, Lindsay, Catherine, Frank, anybody have some comments or questions? We've got a bashful group tonight.
Yeah.
You had
quiet.
mentioned several times that it was in context with that neighborhood specifically. I was wondering what you were looking to for that context.
Well, I think the context is really in that whole zone is residential mixed use, and the majority being some combination of residential and commercial and highly desired and not industrial, specifically not industrial. I think we view that metal building is one that we've repurposed a lot of buildings, and Edgewater, I'll use Edgewater for example, is that we repurposed a 55,000 square foot King Supers and made it into a destination. That metal building isn't one that we're going to repurpose. So the point being, we're moving from an industrial to exactly what that context is asking for, and all of those plans is a residential use with some amount of commercial, which I think we're trying to do in a thoughtful way.
Well, we are at 8 o'clock, so I don't want to go too far over, but I do want to continue to invite input or questions if anybody has them. One thing we haven't talked about, Jonathan, is your timing with a development of this size, and with the fact that your current rendering is really just mass. Are you okay with the idea of coming back in a month or two once you've gone a little bit further in the design, having gotten the input that you have tonight, and looking for a vote of support at that point rather than now?
If you're telling me you don't think we'll get support tonight, then yes. If you're,
I'm telling you that I'm not saying that you're not going to get support. I'm telling you, and James, jump in.
Right.
Normally with a development of this size, we would look for some more description in terms of rather than just massing study.
We understand. Yeah, and again, we were trying to get some early feedback. We've had our pre-app with the city. We got their feedback. And again, like I said, we actually downsized based on that feedback. So we just wanted to get this in front of you as early as we could, start getting some of this feedback. I'd like to say it won't take us 2 months. We'll, if you guys are meeting monthly, we'll plan on, hopefully we can get on your next month's agenda, and we will have a more detailed elevation for you guys to consider.
Yeah, Jonathan, that'd be great. And I would ask if you would continue to consider the vehicular access off an alley rather than off the street. A better description of what the retail space might look like.
Yep.
And then also is something that wasn't brought up that we don't have to talk much about is we are constantly concerned about maintaining green space in this area. And I certainly would like to see as much green space as you could fit into your plans, and not necessarily elevated, but street level.
Right. Yeah, and obviously in where we can do that, we'll try to do that. And elevated was intended for more residents, arguably, and for them to enjoy kind of an urban garden. And again, I will ask for some understanding, and for those of you who have kind of push design, and it is more challenging getting off of a very elevated alley into this building. So it's not a simple feat, and obviously, you know, we look at it and it compromises the number of parking. It's just more challenging to do. So, you know, we kind of went this direction for this very intent, to kind of see what the feedback would be. There's precedent for it, but we understand that sometimes it's not 100% desired.
Sure. So I think if you could, you know, take us through that, and utilizing drawings, help us understand why that's really not possible. You know, that would be helpful, because the street activation on Jason really is important to us. On a positive note, I do want to say that I had a chance to sneak a peek at your website, and I do like some of the material choices and some of the design features of a number of your projects. So I'm glad to be having you work on this with us. Thank you very much for engaging with us early and listening to this early input. And it's first come, first serve for next month's agenda. So if you're telling me you think you're going to be ready, I'll go ahead and pencil you in, so you don't need to worry about that.
We're ready.
Perfect.
Okay. Any
Thank
other
you.
comments or input that Jonathan and Stacy can use as they plan for next month's meeting? Wow. All right.
Actually, I did, Trippy. I will say, you know, instead of looking at a picture of more the mass, maybe some of the elements, you know, the visual of it, what it's really going to look like. So add in those features that you want us to consider, because it's really hard to look at this. I would be like, no, that's horrible right now, right? You're looking at
No,
the box. So
Yeah.
whatever.
We understand it's a box.
Yeah. No, and I get that. This is early enough, and obviously, you know, I don't think we would be taking a vote based on just not having, you know, better, you know, visuals on what you expect it to look like. So that's one. And again, there were obviously considerations on the issue of access in the alley. So I think that's, and I think, Bill, you made a great point. You know, if you can walk us through the challenges, you know, because we'd love to see, you know, what other options there are and why you know, they're not doable or not feasible for you. So it'll be helpful for us to understand your position more clearly on this piece.
Absolutely, and appreciate that. And for those of you that are somewhat, you know, geometrically kind of inclined, Rob can tell you what the slope of a ramp needs to be, and with that slope getting down 10 feet, what that requires.
Yeah, and you know, there are a couple of comments in the chat from one of our other board members, and also on this committee from Catherine. You know, we might just make sure you see those. Just basically, you know, it's a TOD. You know, if cars and the parking is the reason, you know, what if we didn't have any cars, you know, at all, had no parking? Would that make the public realm possibility look very different and much more attractive? I'm just kind of just wanted to make sure that point was heard. That's all. Or
sure. No, absolutely.
And very specifically, you know, Catherine Cornwell, who is the person that put the item in the chat, and her comment is that she'd rather see no parking than to have the parking access get in the way of Jason. And I have to say, I would tend to lean in that direction as well. So hopefully that just gives you a sense of how important Jason Street is to us.
And also that walkability, the pedestrian, that realm, you know, we have one opportunity in this area to create something great for the neighborhood, and we don't want to really lose it by one-off exceptions for, you know, some reasons. So, you know, we are all very interested in a good solution that works for everybody. We love the density. We're, you know, so want to make sure you understand that we're supportive of the project. But we also want certain things that are important. And I think this is an important one for us.
Well, and also,
go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Rod.
Oh, I was just going to say, you know, past projects that have made it through, that have had, you know, where there's previous examples of these vehicular accesses cutting through areas, I think that as this board has become more knowledgeable about what we're looking for and we've dug into it more, we realize mistakes have been made already, and we probably should have been more diligent in the past of stopping some of this stuff. But I think, as Bill reiterated, this is the ideal here would be now that this is a Main Street sort of focus, and we have to sort of, even though mistakes have been made, it's not a reason to duplicate it and keep it moving forward. So anyway.
Well,
Yeah,
and just
Go
to
ahead.
comment on that, since Zia was the specific project mentioned, Zia is a much larger project. Inca is a very different street from Jason's. So I think the parallels are not quite direct, but nonetheless. All right, we're over time. Jonathan, any last comments, and then we'll sign off.
Only maybe one last question, which is actually more interesting to hear than not, was the focus on Jason. Actually, that's the first time that we had heard that is a street was kind of a central, corridor or Main Street or something. Honestly, that's the first time I've heard that.
Well, Jonathan,
So that's,
I mean, that's not institutionalized anywhere in a plan. So don't take it from that perspective. That's essentially neighborhood and PCD chatter.
Got it.
And a lot of it comes from the fact that people, I think initially people were thinking Inca was going to be very much that.
Right.
But I think people have come to realize that it's difficult to have robust retail on a one-sided street. So there is already quite a bit of retail on Jason. So I think our thinking has evolved over the last year or two to think that Jason's much more important from that perspective.
Okay, good to know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye, everyone.